Good morning. My name is Josh Evans, Vice President of Government Relations for IARF. It is Friday, May 29th, and this is IARF Week in session. As you would imagine this time of year, the budget, or at least a budget, is wrapping up in the process as the General Assembly is scheduled to be out of town by midnight on Sunday, May 31st. Whether that will happen remains to be seen. But we are pleased to be able to talk today with the Senate's Deputy Minority Leader Matt Murphy from the 27th District up in Palatine, who has been able to sit down with us today to talk about the budget process as it's playing out now and where he thinks things might end up whenever they're finalized. So without further ado. So good morning. We're here with State Senator Matt Murphy from the 27th District, Deputy Republican Leader. Thank you for joining us for this week's IARF Week in Session.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
So it is late May, which this time of year, in addition to a flurry of substantive bills that some surprise, some don't, move through the General Assembly, it's the time where typically the budget gets wrapped up. And as my members back across the state know, there's a process playing out, or has played out, the last week or so with the Senate Democrats and the House Democrats seeming to reach agreement on a budget plan that they've, for the most part, I'd say, advanced through both chambers of the General Assembly. Could you talk in terms of your perspective, your thoughts on that plan? Where do you think we're at right now, and what does this mean for you and perhaps service providers with respect to this budget and the process today?
Well, I think the most important thing with regard to the budget that the Dems have put through for people to understand is, we expect revenue to be somewhere in the 32 billion, maybe 33 billion range. They're talking about spending 36.3 billion. I think for service providers, they have seen this sort of thing before where a certain amount of promise is made in the budget at the beginning of the year, and then by the time we come around 9, 10, 11 months later, we realize, wait a second, this is the point in time where that revenue doesn't match up to the spending promise that was made, and now there isn't enough to finish out the year. And how are we going to finish the year? Are we going to get late payments? So, unfortunately, this is, to me, another one of these budgets where there's over-promising. What I'm hoping is at a certain point, we had an election and the voters decided to have shared governance. So we have a Republican governor and a Democratic legislature. And I think in choosing a different path for governor, the people said, hey, we want to see things done differently here. And frankly, a lot of the people who have relied on state government, I suspect, got tired of the annual, show, the careening from crisis to crisis, the hand-wringing, are we going to be able to do this, are we not? And it got old. And it got old for the people, it got old for the state's partners, like your members. And I think the point that the governor is trying to make is we need to do things differently. We need to reform the way we operate. We need to have more latitude within our budget. As you and your members know, we've got 25% of our budget goes to a pension payment. Well, that means that's money that can't go for us to be a better partner, for example, with your members. So, we need to kind of change the dynamic of how we operate. And so the governor has said, look, I'm willing to talk with the Democrats who run the General Assembly about a tax increase that could actually afford the type of budget that the Democrats are passing. But we're not just going to have a tax increase and keep doing everything else the way we've always done it, because we tried that 4 years ago. In 2011, we had a tax increase with no reforms. And while things we've made pension payments, a lot of the state's partners didn't really do very well with that. That wasn't enough to make the state a better partner. What we need to do is get ourselves in a position where the state has more people working, has a better, stronger economy, so we have more people paying taxes in, and we have a more stable, reliable revenue stream so that we can predictably go to the people we partner with and have them be able to rely on us and say, when we pass a budget in May and if we tell you you're gonna get this money, we're gonna be able to pay you on time, and we're gonna give you what we say we can give you. That hasn't happened for years, and we wanna be in a place where it can happen.
Senator, you touched on some reform elements in the discussion of the budget. Just this Wednesday, the IARF Board of Directors approved a position statement, resolution, what have you, supporting, I would say, a substantial number of Governor Rauner's proposed reforms to workers' compensation, as well as some additional recommendations that we would like for him to consider as things play out. It's been said in the building that workers' compensation is a substantive law change that is likely tied to an outcome on the budget. Can you speculate on that in terms of reforms in the budget? Where do you think we're going to end up in all this whenever it gets decided?
Yeah, well, no, and that's a great point. So, down here we've been referring to what's been called the grand bargain. And that is the governor gets reforms that by and large bring the cost of doing business down and change the way state government operates. If he can say he brought the cost of doing business down with reforms like workers' compensation, then he can justify having a tax rate go back up because that brings the cost of doing business up. But if you're getting the reforms, you're offsetting that, hopefully more than offsetting it. So we're putting ourselves on a trajectory to be a more competitive state where our jobs climate can get better while we're still taking in the revenue to deal with the fiscal crisis of the here and now. So that's sort of the general concept of the grand bargain. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten a lot of support from our Democratic colleagues on some of the reform pieces. I suspect we're going to go into an overtime session, and there's going to be a nasty fight because old habits die hard. I mean, we've had 12 years of one-party rule, and it's an adjustment for all of us down here, Republicans and Democrats alike, to the new dynamic. And it's going to take time for people to realize that real compromise is going to have to occur between Republicans and their governor and the Democrats and their supermajority legislature. So I think in the end it'll work. I think we will get a grand bargain at some point. I just don't know when it will be, but I suspect it'll be a little while yet, and there will be a sort of a nasty political fight, I think, in the interim, unfortunately.
Senator, any final words for the providers back home in your district?
But keep it up. We're hoping to be a better partner than the state has been for a long, long time, and we want to stabilize state government, how it operates, how it finances, and if we can do that, we can be a better partner for you guys. So thanks for all you do for us.
Thanks for joining us today. We very much
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it.